Yes, some animals like rabbits and mongooses dig burrows in the ground and live in them. Moles and rats make underground tunnels to live in. So underground tunnels means like underground passage they build. Rats and all in the halls they live, isn't it? Rabbits also. We say burrows and halls, and they live inside it. Like animals like rabbit, rat. They all build hole, dig hole, like underground passage. We say burrows or halls, and they live inside it. Web. You know who built a web? Yes, spider, isn't it? Spider built a web. You can see here and there. You can have you seen? Yes, definitely you have seen, isn't it? Spiders spin the webs of silken thread to catch flying insects. They build the web on the corners of the buildings here and there. You can see spiders spinning a web. Why they are doing that? To catch the insect, flying insects. They come and they fall into this trap, and these spiders will eat it. Okay, so spiders spin the webs of silken thread to catch flying insects, and insects flies into the web and gets caught in it, and the spider will eat it. Okay, hives and colonies. Honeybees lives in hives. Honeybees, honey that give us honeybees that gives us honey, it lives in hives. The name of honeybee's home is hives. And termites. Termites mean small insects. And ants, they live in large groups called colonies. Ants, termites, they live together in a large group. So it is called colonies. They are called social insects because they are living in a group, isn't it? So termites, ants that live in large group called colonies. So they are known as social insects. Ants, termites, they live in groups. That's why they are called social insects, because they are living in the group or colonies, we say. Bees build hives with vats. So honeybees live in hives, isn't it? How they build this hives, their home? With vats, a kind of yellowish substance produced by this honeybee. Yellow color, you have seen honey, isn't it? So using that vats, they build their home hive. So bees build hives with vats, we say. Okay, like that. Ants and termites, you can see the image there. Okay, ants, termites build huge big ant hills and build ant hills, isn't it? With hard mud, with using mud that too very hard, they build this ant hills. Each ant hill has many rooms. See, inside the ant hill there are many rooms. They are used for storing food and keeping the babies. They use these rooms to store the food and also to keep the babies. The worker ants build and repair the ant hills. They live in groups. So among these groups of ants, there are worker ants, those who work, and they repair what? These ant hills. See how nicely they are doing all this job. They build ant hills using hard mud. Different rooms are there in the ant hills for keeping the babies, as well as to keep the food, to store the food. And among them there are ants called worker ants, those who work for the ant hills or repair the ant hills. If anything happens to the hill, they work for it or they repair it. Yes. So nicely in a group they live together. Social insects, ants, termites. Okay, so we learned about again animals that live in burrows and halls, like rabbit, rat, moles. They all dig the burrows or dig the hall, underground passage we say, and they live inside it. Then we saw spider. You know, spider spinning a web. Actually, spider lives in the web. They spins the web and for catching the flying insects. That is the food for them. Then we saw honeybees building hives, and ants and termites. They live in large group called colonies. They are social insects. Bees build hives using wax. Then ants and termites, those live in large groups. They build ant hills with hard mud, and they have different rooms in it to keep the babies and storing the food. If anything happens to the ant hill, there are worker ants to repair it. They will take care of that. Okay, so that's about other animals. So we learned about animals that live on land, then terrestrial animals, then we learned about animals that live in water, aquatic animals. We learned about animals on trees called arboreal animals. Then we have seen animals that build their own homes, like different varieties of birds build in different kinds of nest using twigs, leaves, straw, etc. Then we learned about animals living in burrows, halls, spiders spin in web, about ants, termites, social insects, about bees in hives, etc. Okay? Yes, children, so next is about some animals that comes out from the shelter at night. Only night they comes out of the homes, not in the daytime. So what kind of animals they are? Let's see. Okay. Nocturnal animals. Nocturnal animals. These are some animals that comes out from the shelter at night. Why? Let's see. Some animals like bats, owls, earthworms and moths come out of the shelter mostly at night. Such animals are called nocturnal animals. Animals that comes out of the shelter at night. Maximum at night they comes out. These animals can see clearly in the dark. So at night, in the dark, they can clearly see, like we see in the daytime. Like that, clearly they can see everything in the night. Most desert animals are nocturnal. Animals that live in deserts, they are nocturnal animals, we say, because they comes out from the shelter at night time. Mostly they comes out at night. They come out at night when it is cool. Nighttime usually it's cool, isn't it? So they comes out at that time. This protects them from the heat of the sun. So daytime they are not coming out mostly. Mostly they are coming out at night. So it protects them from the heat of the sun, because they are coming out at night, so they don't want to bear the heat of the sun, and helps to reduce water loss from the bodies. So because they are coming out at night, they don't want to bear the heat of the sun, so they are safe from the heat of the sun. So they can protect themselves from the heat and the reduce water loss from the body. Water won't loss from the bodies because they are not coming out when the sun is there. Okay. Yes, so those kind of animals are called nocturnal animals. Animals like bats, owls, earthworm, they are the examples of nocturnal animals. They comes out from the shelter at night, mostly at night, and they can see everything clearly at night. It protects them from the heat of the sun and prevents the water loss from the body. So these are the animals that comes out mostly at night. Nocturnal animals, we say. And desert, most of the animals comes out at night. Most of the desert, mostly desert animals are nocturnal, we say. Okay. Next, man-made shelters. Animals like horses, cows and hens are kept on farms. There are some animals we kept on farms. They are called farm animals, or we say domestic animals, isn't it? Domestic animals. Horse, cow, isn't it? They are all we kept in farms. Hence, some of them provide us milk, meat and eggs. Hence, give us meat, eggs. Cow gives us milk. Then sheep gives us wool, meat, etc. So farm animals live in shelters built by man. For them, people, we are taking care of them. So human beings build home for these animals, domestic animals. Example, dog lives in a kennel. You can see the image, the dog in a kennel. Dog lives in a kennel. And a horse lives in a stable. Horse home is stable. A horse lives in a stable, that home built by man. Then a cow and a buffalo lives in a shed. So they are farm animals. So human beings build shelter for them. They build shed for them, and cows and buffaloes live in that. Hens in a coop. Where do hens live? Hens live in a coop. That is the shelter of a hen. Hens live in a coop. So these are man-made shelters, isn't it? Coop, stable, shed. These are the shelters built by man for the animals, domestic animals, or we say farm animals. We keep them in the farm so that we get milk, egg, meat, etc. So they are called farm animals or domestic animals, and man builds shelters for them and take care of them. That's why they are called man-made shelters. These shelters built by man to these animals are called man-made shelters. Then shelters near us. Look around your house on walls, in the kitchen and on the roofs. Once you just look at on the walls, you can just look on the kitchen, roofs and all. If you see, you may see lizards catching insects on the walls of your house. Have you seen? Yes. Mostly everywhere we can see in the house, on the walls, lizards after the insects catching it and eating. You might also see cockroaches, ants and rats in your kitchen, and a spider's web somewhere with insects caught in it. These are all things that we can see in our house itself, isn't it? These animals live in and around our houses because they get the necessary things for life, especially food. Why we can see these animals around us in our house itself? We are not building nest for them, or we are not building shelter for them, but still they are living along with us in our own houses. Why? Because they are getting food, which is a basic necessity of their life. They need food to live, and they are getting it there itself, isn't it? So this is their habitat. Habitat means the natural surroundings they live. Because they are getting food over there, they are building homes there in and around our house, on the walls, on the roofs or corner, and they are living because they are getting food there. So that is their habitat, isn't it? That is shelters near us, we say. So that's all about our lesson of today, children. So we were learning about animals, where animals live, about the shelters. All living things need shelter to live. So animals are there around us. There are different types of animals are there. So some we can see in the open places they live, and some build their own homes, their own shelters. Some shelters for animals are built by man. Some near us shelters are there built by animals itself. So we learned about all these things, isn't it? So we learned about terrestrial animals that live on land. Terrestrial animals that live on land. Lion, tiger, elephant, deer, etc. They live in rock caves. Lion, tiger, then snakes in halls we saw. Then open places under the trees. Elephants, deer we saw. Then about the animals live on trees we learned, that is arboreal animals like monkeys and all. They live on monkeys, chimpanzees, squirrels. They live on trees. Then we learned about aquatic animals that live in the water. Water gives them oxygen and as well as food for them to live under the water. Fish, crabs, starfish, jellyfish, they all live in the water. And we have seen some animals live in the shells. Shells are home of some sea creatures like snails and turtles. Then we saw some animals like walrus, sea lion that live in polar region where there is so cold region. Yes, so these animals live, sometimes they come to the land to reproduce, we say, or to produce the young ones and to take rest. Animals in polar regions. Then we learned about amphibians. Amphibians, the animals that live both on land and in water, like frogs, toads, they live in land as well as in water. These are amphibians, we say. Then we learned about animals that build their own homes, like some birds building the nest. There are different varieties of birds building different kinds of nest using twigs, leaves, straw, etc. Isn't it? Birds like sparrows and crows, they build deep cup-shaped nests to protect the young ones falling out. And also some birds like partridge, they build nest in the paddy field, we saw. Then parrots, owls building nests in the hollow spaces in trees and wells. Weaver bird, how they build the nest, they make a nest hang upside down, isn't it? And tailor bird stitching leaves, broad leaves and building nest. Woodpecker, they make a hole in the tree trunk and they live inside it, and woodpecker and its babies. Then kingfisher digging hole in, under the near the river bank, like an underground passage. It builds some tunnels, we say. These are the different types of birds building different kinds of nest. Then animals like rabbit, then rats, they live in the holes or burrows. Then web, spider spins web, isn't it, to catch the insects, flying insects. Then there are some animals that live in hives, honeybees, isn't it, lives in hives. Then animals that live in colonies or in large groups, they are ants and termites. They are called social insects because they live in large groups. Ant build ant hills, different rooms are there in ant hills to keep the babies and also to store food. So there are worker ants who build ant nest. If anything happens to it, they repair it, isn't it? Then we learned about some animals that comes out only at night or mostly at night. They are called nocturnal animals. Animals that comes out at night. Most desert animals are nocturnal. Comes out at night and they see very clearly in the night. And that way they keep themselves cool, like they can protect themselves from the heat of the sun, because night time, cool time, they comes out. Then there are some animals, domestic animals we keep in the farm, and we build shed for cows, kennel for dog, then coop for hen, and they provide us egg, meat, milk, etc. And there are shelters we can see within our house, in like web and some kind in the corner or roofs. We can see some lizard catching insects and spiders spinning web on the walls of the house and all, because they are getting the food, the basic necessity in the life, they are living there. So shelters near us means these are the shelters near us that we can see here in our house itself. So that is the habitat, we say, the natural surrounding where they live. Now, what all things we learn? The main important points are, like human beings, all animals need shelter to protect themselves from adverse weather conditions, enemies, and to rest from the bad weather conditions and enemies, and to take rest. Like human beings, animals also need shelters. They need shelters to protect themselves from the bad weather conditions, then animals and enemies, and also to take rest. Some animals live in natural surroundings, while some build shelters. Birds build nests using materials like twigs, thread, and grass. Animals like ants and honeybees live in colonies and are called social insects. Okay, next, life skills. Life skill. Let's see what they have given in the life skills. Okay, what can you do to protect plants and trees that provide shelter for birds? Trees provide shelter to some plants and animals. So what can you do to protect them? Tick that you will love to do. So children, just read each point and what all things you do, you have to tick it. What all things you don't do, just cross it. First one, plant a tree. Can you do that? Will you love to do? To plant a tree. If you plant a tree, it is good for the, can be a shelter for animals. Not only for that, it gives us also shade. It gives good oxygen also, isn't it? Yes. Next, gift a plant on somebody's birthday. Will you love to do that? If you love to do, if you give, then put a tick mark in the square box. Make sure that the nesting place is safe. If the birds build nest there, you have to make sure that it is safe. Will you make it sure? Peep in the nest to see whether the eggs are safe. Will you peep inside the nest? If you have seen a bird build nest on the tree, will you peep and see it? It is not good to do that. But if you do, you put a tick. If you won't do, you put a cross. Prevent trees being cut in your neighborhood, in your nearby places, in your neighborhood. If anyone is cutting the tree, will you prevent it? Will you tell them it's not good to cut the tree, we should not cut the tree? Will you do that? If you do, put a tick mark. Touch the eggs of the bird because you want to know more about them. To know more about eggs, will you go and touch the eggs of the birds that laid? Will you do that? It's not good to touch the eggs actually. So will you do it or not? Destroy a nest because it is a nuisance. You are thinking it will cause disturbance for you. It is not good that you are not liking it. So because it is a nuisance for you, because of the sound and all, will you destroy the nest made by a bird? Will you do that? If you do, put a tick. If you won't do, just cross it. So in this, there are many points they have given. Among these points, what all things you love to do, you have to make a tick. Okay, children?